Hello, I'm BJ Barnes. This is Sonia Barnes, and we represent BarnesOnMove. Somebody had taken the one with the "the," so we don't get to keep that one. But yeah, we've had somebody ask, and we knew we needed to for a while, but we needed to tell our story. So here's a little bit about us. Back, long time ago.
At the dawn of life.
But no, as a family, we were participating in the rat race. We had the jobs, we had the cars, we had the house, and we were a multi-generational home, which, to include everybody, we had to actually upsize and buy a bigger house. So we were living in a 5-bedroom house with a pool.
With a pool.
And a yard.
Huge yard.
2 dogs, parents, kids, the whole 9 yards. And that enlarged our footprint, which means we had to live bigger, and that did not do for the type of lifestyle that we wanted.
Before that, when we first started out, we had a smaller house. It was like the perfect, just enough space to live in, super small, mortgage that worked, but it didn't fit our family needs. Hence the need for an upgrade instead of a downgrade.
And with that upgrade, that bigger house, that meant we had more maintenance. We had more repairs. There was more cleaning. In order to clean a big house, it was an all-day affair, which took away a day, usually on the weekend, for us to spend time together as a family.
And yes, before you say, well, you didn't have to clean all the time, we did actually have to clean all the time because I have a dust allergy. So we had to clean it deeply every week from top to bottom.
That kept the house nice and it kept everything in repair, but that took away from any types of travel that we wanted to do. It kept us limited on day trips, and it made a lot more time at home and doing home stuff than being able to get out and around. And the big yard was great, but it required mowing, it required upkeep, it required watering, it required
chickens.
Well, we had chickens because we wanted chickens, but that was fun too. So all these little things, these little normal things that everybody considers a part of a house, it just took away from a lot of the time and energy that we wanted to put into exploring and getting to travel. So finally one day we decided that let's try something different. When did we come up with that story?
We came up with that because my mom had originally moved in with us. She was having health issues. Her rent was going up. She was only working part-time, semi-retired, and she couldn't keep her apartment. So she moved in with us, and we had a college-age student living with us as well. Our deal with him was you pay for college, we cover room and board, so he could graduate debt-free. That worked great. He graduated debt-free with his bachelor's degree, and we were able to get mom financially back on her feet. We were able to get her health back on track as well, and she was able to come off of a lot of different things that were holding her back and made us nervous having her live on her own, and she was able to regain independence. So when all that was said and done, we were plotting things out. My dad ended up staying with us temporarily to get back on his feet. And then when he was in a good place as well, we didn't need a big house for 3 of us that were perfectly content traveling in a Jeep and camping in a tent or a tiny little camper or whatever else we had. We were perfectly fine with something smaller than all that.
So, did you travel before?
I traveled a lot before. Did you travel before?
I traveled a good bit before too. So I had traveled in the southeast United States with my family. So we've hiked in different places, camped in different places, backpacked, traveled up through the mountains, had family that was living in Alabama. So I spent my summers up there when I was younger. Since I've been older, of course, we got to travel a little more in the United States, been out to a few different countries. I think we went to the Bahamas, we've been to Iceland, Canada. And what had you done?
Well, I grew up traveling. I mean, from my earliest days, since I was born in Texas, we were driving I-10 between Texas and Florida for family. And then I was lucky enough to, be a retired military brat, but that meant that my family was traveling quite frequently. And so we, when I was 7, we did a road trip to Washington State, and then we flew to Alaska for a couple of weeks. So I got to see a lot of everything west of the Mississippi and everything south of the Mason-Dixon line. When I was 10, we did a trip up to DC and Pennsylvania to see family, and then other random trips. And then since I've been an adult and been back here out of the military, well, when I was in the military, I did a lot of traveling in Europe and the Southeast. And then being back here, we both love to travel. So while we were dating and early married, we did a lot of travel. So I've actually been to all 50 states and checked all of those off. And I think I've got about 9 countries checked off. And a chunk of those have been with him. So I'm actually revisiting all of the states with him and Louie. So it's kind of cool to see how things have changed from when I was an 80s kid to how they are now.
Even back in high school at different times throughout our dating times, friendships, what have you.
Whatever you want to call it.
We wound up doing day trips, which would take us to St. Pete, Clearwater, St. Augustine, down to Key West.
Yeah, our backstory, we actually met in high school. We were just really good friends in high school and ran in the same circle. We were in Naval JROTC together, so we spent a lot of time together doing all of the different trips. My mom chaperoned everything, so I got to go on every trip. So we have a lot of history from way back in high school together.
So we had traveled.
Don't worry, friends. Many stories we're not putting on camera. There will be no proof.
So back in about, I think it was like 2016 that we packed up and went north. I think it was 2016.
Yes, because 2015 we went to Key West for my birthday and saw the southern end of US 1, and then in 2016 we were coming up on summer and had the wild hair of, where's the other end?
Yeah, we had time, we had a few weeks, so we loaded up the 2 of us, a 5-year-old child, a cooler, a tent, some clothes, and we had a general plan that we were going to travel the eastern seaboard.
And a goal of finding internet once a week, because I was actually working on a master's degree, so I had homework to do. So there were many of the days on that trip where we were in a tent and I was working on a computer.
So we hopped in a Jeep with all the stuff loaded up and headed north. The idea was go north and work our way south. So we were in a hurry to get north, but we stopped in one of those cities on the eastern side.
We were 2 hours out. We were headed for Savannah, but it turns out there was this big festival going on, which was why we hadn't found reservations. So, you know, best laid plans last until first contact. So 2 hours in on our 3-week trip, we changed plans and headed for Charleston in the dead of July.
As we're strolling around Charleston, we found a big sign that said there are 3 walled cities in the northern North America. St. Augustine, Charleston, that we were standing in, and of course we've been to St. Augustine many times,
yeah.
And Quebec City. So at that point in time, we changed plans again and knew that the northernmost point of our trip was going to be in Quebec, up in Canada.
Instead of Fort Kent, Maine at the end of US 1, we were going to go a few hours further.
So we went north, we hit Quebec, we enjoyed it. Neither one of us spoke French.
I was gonna say, wait.
So
let's reenact the border crossing. Hey, babe, do you speak French?
I don't speak French. Do you speak French?
It's been a while since I've been to France.
What's that sign say?
I don't know, but it looks like a stop sign.
I think it's a stop sign. Let's go with that.
Yeah. That was our driving in France, or in Canada.
Canada. So then we worked our way back south and we hit different places that were not major trips. So it's something that would only take an hour or 2 to do.
Yes.
That didn't work all the times because some things were bigger than others, but we still enjoyed it. And once we got back, Louis had hit 13 or 14 or 20, I don't know. He had hit the whole eastern seaboard.
The entire eastern seaboard.
Along with 2 Canadian provinces. And so Louis now had a big chunk of states. He got to visit different historical places and other stuff, and we had added to his exploration. And this trip,
and his life experience,
this trip was a great trip that anybody could do, but honestly, it's one of those you can label a trip of a lifetime. And that trip is what reignited that want to travel.
And we realized it wasn't as expensive to travel as we thought. We stayed in a lot of campgrounds for a tent site, anywhere from $10 to $30, just depending on amenities. You know, we stayed with friends and, you know, just threw our sleeping bags on their floor if they didn't have a guest room. Yeah, we couch surfed. We stayed in like 2 hotels the whole trip. But we did that entire trip, granted 2016, but we did that for less than 1 paycheck. So it was less than $1,500 for 3 weeks of traveling, for gas, for food, for touristing things that we did, and souvenirs, because this was back when we collected a lot of souvenirs. So.
And that was fun. So that travel then started otherwise. So here's the timeline. I got the timeline wrote down. So we tent camped for a while, but then we found an easier way to do it. We got a Wolf Pup tow behind camper. It was like a 15-foot, something like that.
It was like a 16-foot, yeah.
15, 16-foot. So yeah, that was just like a glorified tent on wheels, but it had a bathroom, it had a TV, it had a bedroom.
It had a toilet and a semi-shower.
It had a stove.
Yeah.
It worked.
The bathroom sink and kitchen sink were the same thing. It had the fold-down dinette and a full-size bed. Like it was legit a rolling tent.
It was small enough to be pulled by a small Jeep Cherokee, and that took us across to Texas at least once. And then when we outgrew that because Louie got over 4 foot tall and could no longer use that spare bed, then we sold that. We went back into a tent for a little bit, where they finally realized we're too old to tent camp. And then we got a boat. Boat was fun.
We lived in a chain of Lake City.
So we got to explore the chain and got around that way. And then we took the boat up to Pontoon Island. And what did we do there?
We camped in our pontoon boat, which was an adventure in and of itself.
We got a tent, put it on the pontoon boat, and we had a few days worth of camping there.
We'd also hauled it down to Tampa. When our little guy had zoo camp, we had rented an Airbnb on the river. So we got to spend a lot of time there playing in the boat. So we hauled that thing all over the place.
So we sold the boat because the boat didn't fit for us.
Well, before we sold the boat didn't fit because this was around the time when we decided, with parents moving out, kids moving out, smaller family, we realized it was actually practical for us to jump into the full-time RV life early. And our son didn't mind not going to school because this was during COVID. He liked being home. He liked having his own schedule. So we could modify his learning to an at-home learning environment. And we didn't need the big house. So we sold the boat because we started selling everything in anticipation of ditching the house.
But we did have a lot of research and a lot of looking and a lot of shopping. So it was over the course of multiple years that we decided to move into an RV.
It was not spontaneous. This guy doesn't do anything spontaneous.
And
we dated for 10 years before we got married. He's that not spontaneous.
So with all our look and research and needing to, in essence, run multiple businesses out of a camper, we settled on a 5th wheel bunkhouse that had the bunk in the backside. Not this one. And it was reasonably priced. It was a lower grade, but it served us well for about a year.
It was a starter camper that we could afford while still managing the house and supporting family and kids getting on their feet when we decided to make this change. So it wasn't the dream camper. It was a price point that worked for what we needed to make sure we were going to like the life and we could still take care of everybody.
It was enough to be nice, but it was still work and there was other stuff that needed to do. So with that, we had visited different parts of Florida. We'd been on the beaches down to the Keys. We had been all around, and then
we got up the eastern seaboard up to Virginia.
Yep, we lived on a river. We've lived near the springs. We lived near the beach a few times. We've been in horse country. We've been in the country. We've been in near retirement areas. We've been up in the mountains.
We've been in big cities.
Big cities, we've been next to big cities, been able to live there too.
We've even, been to Disney.
And then we finally decided to upgrade, and we found something that was of more quality, had a few more bells and whistles, and we thought it would actually serve us better. That's when we got into this Arcadia. And outside of Florida, we have been into Virginia, we've been into Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, the Outer Banks.
Yeah, both the Carolinas. Georgia. Did you say Georgia?
I got Georgia in there.
Okay.
So we've been around,
Mm-hmm.
and so as soon as we can, we are looking to get farther out of the state of Florida and to adventure in other areas. So I think we've got on the list at the moment Texas, maybe out toward the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
So it looks like we're going to be in the southern United States for 23. I don't know what we'll be doing in 24.
No clue. A lot of it hinges on my job. I have a really great job that I'm lucky enough to love, that I'm lucky enough to have flexibility to travel. As long as I travel in Florida, we aren't able to work out of state except in very rare occasions. Basically, if he's got work opportunities in other places, if I can get approval, then we can. And since this is our house and he usually needs it for work, then that's when that happens. So for the most part, we travel in Florida, but we haven't minded that. I mean, we've been at this for 16 months now, a little over a year, and there's still so many other places on our list of Florida we want to see because we don't want to travel quickly. We want to live like locals. We want to explore. We want to get to know people. We want to find the local restaurants. We want to meet the local people.
And while we have time to adventure, this also gives us a time to shop around to see where we may want to live in a couple of years, or when we decide to retire, or when we decide to buy land or a house again.
Or when we decide that this teenager is too stinky
and want to just throw him in a tent.
We want to throw him in a tent.
But that gives a little bit of an insight into us. If you want to find out more about our story, follow us on our different social media platforms. We're on Facebook, YouTube, some TikTok, and
we're pretty much on everything, but we are most adamantly interactive on Facebook, since the biggest reason we started this group was because we had a lot of friends and family that wanted to travel our journeys, but we didn't want to bombard them on our personal page if they weren't interested. And that way we had a place for people we meet along the way to track us and follow us, because some people are only interested in the travel journey. So that was the big reason this came about and why it's mostly on Facebook, but you know, we're in other places too. So yeah.
Like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, and if I know we didn't, you know, we went into a lot of detail because we have a long story, but if there's other questions that you have about where we've been or what we've done or how we've done it, feel free to reach out, you know, drop those comments or ask us, or come on over to BarnesOnMove group over on Facebook and visit us there. We're happy to help you with your journey wherever you are, or just indulge you in answering your questions.
All right, back to life. We'll see y'all later.
Bye, guys.